Okay, thank you. So given what you've all said and how background checks are important, we need to consider the types of policies that you would have in order to protect your organization, protect the rights of the employees and the applicants and so on. So the question now is, what type of formal written policy, if any, should organizations have regarding the use of background checks? And to answer that question, I'm going to call on Mark Bogatsky. Mark?
Hello, everyone. I've got the bullet there that no formal written policy, and I'm referring specifically to our company, Illinois Cancer Care. We do use a checklist, which I think becomes our de facto policy. And of course, you want your policy to be both comprehensive and consistent. And that becomes your policy. And I would also suggest that working with a vendor partner with this is important. They can provide an invaluable resource in terms of policy implementation and interpretation of issues. Using that checklist, as Jim said, we apply it consistently and evenly, except for the credit report area, which has some discretion on when to use it, as Jim referenced. We would tend to make it as comprehensive as is legally possible, of course, and we really consider it a critical piece of our whole hiring picture in terms of interviewing and pre-employment testing. To do the due diligence with the background checking is just a critical piece of bringing the highest quality candidate on board as possible. In our case, if some of the more subjective types of references we will discuss with the manager if the situation warrants. Sometimes you can see trending or references that reinforce something that was an issue in the right line there. Makes a determination that based on the information discovered that this individual will not be hireable, in which case that information is kept under lock and key with the applications and is not even disclosed to the hiring manager. So on a need-to-know basis when a not hireable decision is made.
Okay, Mark, you are coming in and out. Can I move on to the next slide? Okay, folks, I apologize. There seems to be a problem with the sound. I'm going to pass this on now to Scott Freehafer. Scott, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, can you take it over?
Sure, Chris. One of the things that you have to be very careful of is being consistent. If you could flip to the next slide, and run background checks on all candidates prior to offer. I would hate to go to court and say, yes, we only run background checks on women and minorities. I think you better write a check, fill in a lot of zeros, and let the other person fill in the number that they want. I would recommend, unless you have someone who is very proficient doing background checks, that you use a third party. There's no way that I can develop a depth of expertise that third-party people can do it, and they can also do it probably as cheaply or even cheaper than I could do it in-house. One of the things that one of my friends does, he has a background check company. He actually has indemnity policies for upwards of $10 million if his company would ever make a mistake in the background check. And that's something to consider also if you are taking it out to a third-party vendor. Will they indemnify a mistake? You need to get the written consent of the candidate that you're looking at, and like I mentioned earlier, don't just have it buried in the application. Have a separate form that they fill out. And then make sure that they understand their rights. And if you do have an adverse action, that you follow the proper adverse action process. Predetermine what type of information you're going to collect. You may run across a lot of various information on candidates. Know which type of information you're using for screening purposes. Make sure that you comply with all appropriate federal and state laws. And remember that a criminal offense does not necessarily disqualify a candidate. There are many people who will check, yes, I do have a felony conviction or a criminal conviction. We'll discuss at interview, And I think that's appropriate. We don't want to necessarily bar a viable candidate from a position, particularly if they can be bonded. And if they have done their time, maybe they need a second chance. One issue with that is that in dealing with correctional education over the years, there's a couple things that I would add to this slide. One is the issue of people having their records stricken. And in a background check, if a case has been taken through an outside of court process that you're allowed to go into a diversion program, you will find sealed records, and there are issues that come up when things are expunged. And you have to know how you're going to deal with those in advance. The organization should reserve the right to withdraw an offer or discharge the candidate if they do go ahead and hire, which I wouldn't recommend. But in the case of George O'Leary, they did have the issue after he was hired. So put it in that you reserve the right to withdraw the offer or terminate the candidate if you find that false information was given or found. And then where will the background check reports be maintained? My thing with that would be it should be in the Human Resource Office, it should be secured, and it should be key controlled. So back